All right, welcome everyone to the what is this podcast called? Oh, Discord in the Ranks.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
Welcome everyone to the Discord in the Ranks. King and I are here to discuss the fresh 15 minute ago announcement where Games Workshop explained the upcoming range update as well as what that means for future factions in the new edition. Um, we don't have a plan for this discussion. We're just
Nope.
going to talk. And we'll just see when this episode naturally concludes. Uh, I hope to have this published by the end of today.
Yeah, that'd be ideal, eh?
Yeah.
Out fresh. I can't believe. No, I can't. I 100%. I'm just going to preface this. I 100% understand why things have went into legacies.
Mhm.
They've got a license. They've got to stick to it. There's been lots of boomerangs around. They had a discussion with it's not New Line Cinema, the other one. I can't remember. They had a discussion and they basically come in and said, "Oi, stop creating your own stuff. Stick to the stuff in the films." It's like, right, okay, cool, but why is Pride and Frida Gorolf and all the Dunlendings of the Third Age just gone now? Well, they're in Legacies, obviously, but I'm just like, you couldn't have given us that. You couldn't have given us modern day Dunland and back in the day Dunland. Like, okay, we got the Oathmaker. He's being repackaged. Cool, but I'm just no. Why?
I think so. Here, I guess let's preface with the fact that they are so in the announcement, and I think we should go through each faction kind of one by one and give our
We'll
thoughts
go
on
one by
each
one.
thing.
Yeah, let's go down it. Yeah, I mean that's the one that sticks out to me the most. Just Dunland. No, but of course, yeah.
Before we get into it, obviously, Games Workshop has said that they are no longer being sold. Things are just going into a legacy mode.
Yeah.
And if that's it, if the old world, like tournament scene, local play scene is any indication, units that go into legacy, while they won't have models, they will still have rules. Games Workshop has said that profiles will be provided so we can still play as them. And my expectation is that Games Workshop tournaments, which is like the two of them that exist, will not allow legacy. And I
100%.
expect that we're going to have a decent number of tournaments that are going to allow legacy. Because there's people that have Kondish armies or Mahood armies, and we'll get into that here pretty quick. That, we'll still have rules to be able to play legally, and so I'd expect we're going to be able to, still see them on the tabletop. But so let's get right into it. I can't wait to talk about Dunland, but we're going to go from top to bottom. So those of you that aren't aware, this article has a little preamble that kind of discusses why they're getting rid of some stuff from the game. They declare that they want to focus on things that are in the book and in the movies, and they don't want to have things that didn't previously have options like available from Games Workshop. So like Citadel Guard riding horses, or Fountain Court Guard having shields, things like that. So if there was no like actual kit available to make certain profiles work, they're being removed. And then they're also removing anything that like was basically a GW invention, and just trying to stick more to what was officially produced through other licensed. So I guess Games Workshop's losing the ability to create their own stories, and it's now specifically the stories that someone else wrote. So Fallen Realms, we're just going to go through one by one and just give a quick little take on each model that's being reduced. So Fallen Realms includes, that's like your if you remember from the Hobbit era edition, that's like Khand and Mahood and a bunch of niche stuff. So first up on the list is Gulfumble.
Aye, from Angmar. Well, he was in the Angmar army list, and he was in the very back of the Scouring of the Shire narrative book. And I was like, right, okay, yeah, you probably never, ever saw him played outside of maybe a bit of a funny list, or someone had the model and was just like, I want to use Golf Thimble. Completely understand that one. It's like far reaching, the very back of a narrative expansion. That's where his profile was anyway. And yeah, I mean, we might have got the game of golf from him, but
Right.
it's like, sure, removed from sale and entering a legacy. Not surprised. There's no surprise there.
Yeah, not a lot of notes there. It kind of makes sense. But then
Yeah,
the second, like, 4 is Mahood King, Mahood Tribe Master, Mahood Warrior, Mahood Raider, and actually the 5th one, Half Trolls. So the
that's
entire
far Harad
Mahood
gone.
faction.
Yeah, that's far Harad just vanished. It's not the entire Mahood faction, because there still is. They've not mentioned the Far Harad Mummic. So, at least the Beastmaster's still around, I guess.
That's
It's probably
true.
going to be
The
revamped, or maybe the only way to take Harad now is literally just the Grand Army of the South. That's it. And it's going to
yeah,
be the Beastmaster and whatever survives of Serpent Horde.
yeah, the Mumek War Leader and the Mumax being just a vehicle for the Harajam is
Yeah.
pretty likely. And then we're
Yeah.
also, with potential, other uses of the Mumek, but that might arise in the future.
Yeah, sure.
That's a rough one. I mean, they were metal, they were rare. You hardly ever saw them on the tabletop, but when you did, they did a lot of work. I mean, people were placed like winning tournaments, like big tournaments with them.
Yeah, they're a very fun faction. Very, very, very good glass cannon, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of what lances. They feel more like lancers than actual lance cavalry units because of the whole impale rule.
Yeah.
And
Impact hits, goddamn.
just losing the Mahood King, which, I mean, maybe is for the best. That guy was an absolute unit. Um, but
One
it
way of
is
putting it.
sad to see a
Aye.
whole faction disappear.
Yeah.
And that we're not even done with factions that are disappearing because, like, we're seeing. Well, I guess in between, we're losing Harajam King, the Golden King of Abercon, the Abercon Merchant Guard, Watchers of Karna, and
Yep.
Corsair Reavers.
That's a good chunk of what was Serpent Horde gone now.
Yeah.
They gave Serpent Horde a bit of variety. Your Watchers of Karna, you were your Spirit Killers, your Arakhan Merchant Guard, they were your heavy hitters. The Golden King was a fun dude, sure. You didn't see him a lot. I don't think I've ever actually saw him once in all of my games, at events and such. But there's people who've been playing a lot longer than me that could probably say like, "Oh, I always took him." It's like, okay, one guy in 100,000.
Yeah.
But like say on TTS or such, he was always someone to just go, you know what, I've not played with him before. I'll give him a go because he had a nice big page of a profile. Know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's just God, and so is Merchant Guard. And yeah, so what's that leave? It leaves Chieftains, Sullidan, Serpent Guard, Serpent Riders, Haradrim Warriors, and Haradrim Riders, eh? That's what that leaves.
Yeah,
It's a
they're
bit of the
they're
flavor
they're quite
gone.
literally changing it to Serpent Horde instead of Harad.
Yeah.
With Abercon and Karna, which only had partial recognition within. Because like over time, right? Because last edition we had Warriors of Karna and Warriors of Abercon, which were just like improvements to the Harad profile. Because like it
Okay.
was like kind of like how Grimbold's Helminga rule works,
Yeah.
where Grimbold can upgrade some Warriors of Rohan. There was a rule where if you had, well, actually, I don't even think Warriors of Abercon existed. But the Warriors of Karna was like they got a 3+ shoot value, and maybe that's all only exists in the battle companies even. But I remember that there was a lot of like profile adjustments in the previous edition, and in the current
Yeah.
edition those disappeared, save for a couple. And so then Abercon Merchant Guard and the Golden King were the only things that existed for Abercon, and then Watches of Karna were the only things that were like specifically Karna named. I mean, obviously Harajam Warriors and Harajam Kings and stuff could be interchangeable, but losing the king, so it's just Suladan leading all of what we get to see on the tabletop,
Yeah.
Is I think a very big shift to focusing on Pelennor Fields rather than, in theory, what else it might have existed.
100%.
And losing Corsair Reavers is going to be rough for the Reavers who enjoyed 2 attacks and +1 to wound on the charge, basically.
Oh mate, the way you could stack them, you could make them strength 4 with +2 to wound because of backstabbers and the I've lost my mind, I'm going to hurt you rule.
Yeah, and having an axe if you weapon swapped.
Yeah, weapon swap to get to the strength 4. Obviously, we know special strikes are going in the new edition completely,
Right.
so that would have went. But seeing just Reavers completely written off, it's like, but in the extended edition, what if that one guy on the boat right next to Peter Jackson before he got shot was a Reaver? Surely, please, Jay, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that Corsair Reavers. Well, I guess they're being legacied, so we're not going to see them kind of reinvented. So we're just going to straight up lose them.
Yep.
Which
Losing
is,
to legacy. That's what I say. We're saying lost in that, but obviously, as we said before, legacy. They'll still be playable. They'll have a rule sheet, and if you've got the models, you've got the models.
Yeah, which Corsair Reavers, they never had a model, which I guess is a little fair for Games Workshop. Couldn't be bothered making one because there's new stuff that they were doing instead, like making bear people, and
making bear people. Yeah, wait, never mind. Well, let's carry on going through the list.
Yeah. So the next up is Khand, the Khandish king, Khandish chieftain, Khandish warrior, Khandish horseman, Khandish charioteer. So the entirety of the Khandish faction is being obliterated.
Nope.
Well,
That's
rather
2
with
evil
legacy.
factions as well. You gotta think about,
Yeah, the
2 whole evil factions just gone.
Absolutely
Legacied.
disappeared. And granted, Khand had in theory, less of a right to exist than the Mahood.
For sure.
Because they were like half a sentence in the book to describe some variags, which I think really meant that, like, what we had, like, what Dunlending were in MESBG, with like the Dunlending horsemen and stuff, I think that is probably, I mean, this is more all theoretical, but the variags of Khand implied that they might have been more akin to matching the aesthetic of Dunlending.
No, there's variags in the Wayne Riders, weren't there? There was the Wayne Riders of Khand as well. But obviously, we had no actual profile called a Wayne Rider, but like we do see them pop up even. Well, in the upcoming film where Wolf usurps Edoras and sends Helm back into Helm's Deep, we know he had help from Wayne Riders, so it's kind of like, right, okay. I'm pretty sure the Wayne Riders are from Khand. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where they were from. But yeah, I just say in the book, it's literally a sentence. It's like oh yeah, and these guys were there. It's like, cool. And from that, we got 5 profiles. Those 5 profiles, legacy.
Now, it is possible, like, and I think this section here and the Dunland section will probably be the longest, because I think that Khand and Mahood might be getting reimagined, because based on, and I won't really get into specifics because I don't want to spoil folks who don't want to watch the trailers, but there's a potential that there is another evil men faction at play in the upcoming Lord of the Rings media. And it's possible that Khand and the Mahood, or just Khand, or whatever, is going to get reimagined as a new faction that might not be from those lands at all. So there might be a spiritual successor to these, and I'm kind of hopeful that that's the case. I'm kind of hopeful that we'll see, like, there's going to be, we're quote unquote losing 2 factions, but we might be gaining one that has like some kind of nods to these two other ones, but that's kind of conjecture because I can't really confirm because we have very little information to
That's
go off of.
so optimistic. Like, I can't believe you're a real human. Jesus. Yeah, nah, like I appreciate that it's conjecture. We don't really know, but you've got some faith there, pal. You've got some
Yeah.
good faith stocked into Games Workshop and what they can and can't do and what they will and won't do.
Right.
I can't see them being reimagined. I really can't. I've definitely see this as they're being legacied, and then next edition they won't even have a legacy profile.
Right, yeah. No, I agree that like Khan as we know it and Mahood as we know it are going to disappear, but there might be a new evil man faction, not invented by GW, produced
Yeah,
from what we're going to see, that will come into play, but also that
yeah, I
might just
guess.
get rolled in. But who
Yeah,
knows? Which
who
will
knows
take
at
us
this
to
point?
Mordor.
Oh, my babies! My
Uh,
named ring wraiths, the first three miniatures removed from sale and entering legacies. The ring wraiths of Angmar, that's the Tainted and the Dwimalak. The ring wraiths of
mhm,
Fallen Realms, Kamul, the Undying, the Knight of Umbar. Oh, the Betrayer, sorry, the Betrayer and Knight of Umbar. And then the ring
yeah.
wraiths of the Lost Kingdoms, which is the Undying, the Shadow Lord, and the Dark Marshal. I love the name Ring Wraith Profile so much, and I completely understand why they are legacy because they are essentially GW invention.
Mhm.
But Kamal isn't like, like, give us one, give us
Yeah.
one other than the Witch King. Oh no!
I it is It is unfortunate.
It's
It
very
is
unfortunate.
quite sad. I
It was
think now.
a good, juicy bit of flavor to add to Mordor. It's what made Mordor my favorite faction. The variety. Yes, you had the Witch King and the Ring Wraiths, but you also had the Witch King and the 8 other named Ring Wraiths, and it was boss. So much variety, so much choice. Sure, no one ever took the Dwimalak, but still, he was there.
Yeah, I do hope that Kamul will see some sort of recognition. Whether it's like Kamul gets to exist at some point because he's mentioned in the books, but he's also only mentioned, I think, in name only. So it's possible that we'll see if they're going in the direction of like Legions of Middle Earth or Legendary
Hmm.
Legions for the new edition, we might see that there's an Easterling list, and there's a Nazgul, right, a ring wraith that's included that gets some buffs, and then that kind of
Yeah.
like is a nod to Kamul.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. Yeah, I get that. That's fair.
and it is very very sad to see the Drummer Lake go. I really wanted to try to make him good.
You just think of the Angmar list. Everyone was like, "Oh, hosts of Angmar. It's finally a spot where the Dwimalak can do some good." Not in the next edition, pal.
Yep. Rip.
Well, unless you're playing with friends and they'll let you use legacies. But
Yeah,
hey ho.
exactly. And that takes us to Goroth and Zagdush, who they are a pack that came together for the Gondor at War supplement. They
Aye.
were one. I think each of them is based on an orc that you just saw in the movie that didn't have a name. Um, and they're just additional heroes of fortitude for the orcs, and it looks like they're even though that they're pretty recent, right? They're 4-year-old
This edition,
model.
aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, that they're disappearing maybe so that Games Workshop can focus more. Well, one because like they were Games Workshop invented, but
Hmm.
there's also a ton of named orcs in the Mordor list. That losing Zagdush is pretty big. Losing Goroth hurts a little bit, but not as much as
Yeah,
Zag.
Gorf was a cool model that you saw maybe more likely in Army of Gothmog over regular Mordor, but Zagdosh you could definitely argue was in regular Mordor lists a lot more, at least Mordor lists that I saw a lot more often. And Zagdosh was also just that. It's just that cheeky wee strength fiver out of nowhere. You just didn't expect it. Joe Gorf was big and
Yeah,
burly, but everybody knew what he could do. Zagdosh would just sneak in there.
yeah. It's unfortunate. I guess
Mm,
and we're going to see a theme in some of the future ones that are being legacied
100%.
that we'll talk about. There's kind of a theme that some of these extra named guys are just kind of being bounced out. Um,
100%.
The Blackguard of Barad-dûr, everyone's favorite meme, Strength 5 Urukai, is disappearing.
Yeah. Oh, look, we're Strength 5. Doesn't that make us so cool? It's a shame that you curse to always whiff.
Yeah.
No, this is not anecdotal. I've seen 6 people play them, and 6 people have whiffed.
Yeah. It's now the Blackguard of Barad-dûr. I think it's also implied that since they use that kind of vaguely, that it's also going to include the what is it, the Marshal of the Blackguard of Barad-dûr or whatever.
No, it was. I think it was captain of the Blackguard of Barad-dûr, and he had
Yeah.
one extra special rule compared to those guys, and he was just
He was
another
like
Strength 5
fearless.
D7 2/1/1, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was something. He had something about his courage if he was near a ring race.
Yeah.
And it was such a random profile that they made, and this was made back in the Hobbit edition where they were just kind of making random units everywhere. Which we're going to see again more profiles later on that are going to be described that fit into that category of like the random extra profile that Games Workshop made that then like hardly sees play. Or saw a lot of play during the Hobbit edition and then didn't see play in this edition. And so a little sneak preview, like the Black Shields of Moria. They were another like random invention. The Prowler is sticking around, I think, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get
Morgul Stalkers. Morgul Stalkers are disappearing. They're the 2-attack orc that's like fight 3 and has Stalk Unseen. They've been around for a little while. But yeah, they're like another random unit. Like no one really takes them. I like them, but they're disappearing.
Yeah, it's one of those profiles that every time I've looked at it, I'm like, that's cool. But I don't really want to convert any of my minis to it, and I don't really have a place to fit it in my lists when I'm building it together. I'm just like, it looks cool, but I'm not using it. I have faced one player, Lewis, 2G's Gaming, back at Throne of Skulls. I'm pretty sure he had a list where it was Shelob, a bunch of Ringwraiths, a bunch of Black, a bunch of Morgul Knights, and he had like 2 Morgul Stalkers, and their whole job was just to sit on objectives. Which is you got Stalk Unseen, just sit on the objective behind a tree branch, done. And like fair enough. And then if you get in there, it's still got 2 attacks to try and sort itself out, which is as effective as shielding, I guess, but offensive. So
it's another like kind of sad one, but
it's just also, like won't use loads, but like I'm still gonna miss the fact that you're gone. Well, that you're legacied.
Carduce the Firecaller is the next profile that's being erased. He's the fireball slinging orc wizard that gets devoured to fuel the Nazgul.
He is the Nazgul battery, and then Nazgul. What was it? You channel Fury. You might cast a few fireballs, then you get die when you no longer need Fury, and feed a Nazgul.
Yeah, and to pair with them, the other thing that's disappearing is Carduce's batteries, known as Orc Trackers.
Yeah! The best orc bows ever! I don't care what you'd have to say about the next one. The next one's the Great Beast of Gorgoroth, and that came with 9 orc bows, but they were 5+ orc bows, not the mighty orc tracker 4+ orc bow. The amount of times I've rolled that 4 and then got a 6 to wound, and bye bye my friend's Iron Hill Goat Rider, hilarious as hell, from a 5-point model, and I can't do that anymore. Well, I can, but it's just. It's not gonna be the same because if it's legacy, that's no more future support, and it's like, why? I bought the Mordor Orc Bowman MTO that was out like I want to say last year, maybe the year before that, which was just 4 dudes who are metal, and I use them as my trackers. And now I'm just gonna be like, I cannot now anymore. Who's that? There's that fellow from Germany, Bear King, who like takes like 15 of them. I'm just like, well, I hope you're running into a bunch of people who are happy with legacies, pal. Otherwise, you got 15 orc trackers just sat on your shelf looking pretty. But to be fair, not so bad if they look pretty and all. But if you're in the game to play the game, it's kind of like, well, they're not doing anything.
And in that trio, like Carduce was another like random named character that they invented, and like only kind of vaguely fits in with the Lord of the Rings like factions period, because he's like this random, like he looks like a D&D model. He was a really good model. I mean, he was a really powerful profile, and was a hero of fortitude, so he could lead a bunch of dudes. And the orc trackers were solid, but the great beast of Gorgoroth also is like another like random profile that was invented, and it's it's got to go to fit with their scheme. Um, and I guess you can't blame them for it. Kind of stinks though because it's a nice kit.
Yeah,
The guys in the howdah of the Great Beast make great orc warrior models because they just look so
yeah.
delightful.
Mm,
But but then
the next two, man.
my heart breaks as we're losing Razgoose, the war leader of the North, and Musger, the orc shaman.
These guys came out with Defense of the North. That was what,
Hmm.
last year? Year
It
before?
was
Year before.
the year
Yeah,
before.
2022. Yeah. They've been around for 2 years. 2 years and 2 months, you could say, because I'm pretty sure it was August release. I might be wrong. Regardless, 2 years, and now they're gone. Musga was such an MVP in most of my Mordor lists. Sure, he was my second transfixer, but if I didn't need that second transfix because the Witch King did his job, Wither was so fun and so hilarious. Just managing to whittle down, say, Gwai here to strength 3, and then having your Troll Chieftain rend him, or like, the enemy army is Lothlorien. Oh, look, you've got Celeborn as your 1 strength 4 combatant. Wither, gone. Nah, I
Yeah,
mean, Musgo is so fun. And then you got Razgush. Well, yeah, he didn't like push the boundaries. He was for a dude who hates elves and was angry about elves and wanted to kill elves. He couldn't fight better than elf heroes, unfortunately.
yeah. He
It
was
just turned elven made off, but that doesn't matter if we still outfight you.
yeah. He kind of got hurt because he was only kind of relevant in his own legendary legion, but I really wanted
100%.
to use him with like
Yeah.
Moranians and stuff, But
Yeah.
my
But
heart breaks.
I
But
mean, I will say, like when they dropped, people there was a bit of discourse around those two being the most un-Tolkien like orcs GW have ever released.
hmm
I remember that being a part of the conversation. Some people said they felt a bit AOSy, but just because of the scale alone, I never felt that. Because the AOS scale compared to MESBG's, leagues and bounds, they are huge. Like I could just look at my crew boys, and they're the thin orcs. And I was like, no, they're not AOS scale at all. But I kind of
yeah,
got what they were saying, and now that they're being legacied, probably because they are a GW invention, and not in the books or films or mentioned anywhere. Kind of like you've had 2 years to sell this model, and a lot of people did like them. I mean, I'm a Musga stan till I die. I'm hoping I can still take Musga to some events over here in England, like because he's
yeah.
just such a G. Wither's so good. If we get the legacy profile and they took Wither from him, I might have to storm Warhammer World.
I yeah. I wonder what they're gonna do to try and represent, the war in the North, because like that was a whole thing in the appendices, is that
Mm,
there was another war that was going on, and Lothlorien gets besieged, and there's the attack on Dol Guldur and all this stuff. Like, because Dol Guldur's where Kamul is, right? Like in
yep.
the or well, I guess maybe he flew over to Pelennor, but in either case, like there was a whole theater up there of war, and so I wonder how they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a pin
But
on
this
that.
also
Oh, sorry. Go
it
ahead.
also just raises a question because obviously the GW invention in the entire list, Eastlings aren't mentioned anywhere. I want to know how Rutabai and Brogia escaped the culling.
Yeah.
I
Well.
want to know. The Dragon Emperor I can understand because we know the Lings have a leader. Dragon Emperor, sure, he can stay even though no one likes his profile except for Easterling fangs. But Rutabai and Brogia, I'm like, really? I want to see what the chart was for can stay, can go, can stay, can go.
Yeah, 'cause that's a little inconsistent. Like they're getting rid of the dragon, or they're keeping the Dragon Emperor and all those other models, and it looks like we we might be keeping the War Drakes, since this is technically miniatures being removed from sale, and the War
hmm
Drakes don't have a miniature, so they might
Miniature.
still stick
Yeah.
around. Or they might disappear because they don't have a model. And they did
Yeah,
say
for sure.
earlier that things without a model are disappearing
Yeah.
to some degree, but it's
We'll have to
really
see what degree
interesting.
that is when we actually, get the army books and the new editions here, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what they're doing for Defense of the North,
Mm.
as a theater
Mm.
of war and all that. But so to round out Mordor, some models are being renamed or repackaged. So Morgul Knights are just getting renamed to Black Númenórean Knights, which makes sense because
Makes complete sense. Yep.
people couldn't understand the idea that Black Númenóreans are the dismount for Morgul Knights,
Exact
and
same
so
profile, but people were just kind of like, oh, but they're called Morgul Knights. There's not a Morgul Knight dismount. It's like they're just Black Numenorians, mate. Exact
yeah.
same in every way.
And it's interesting that this also means that Black Númenóreans and Black Númenórean Knights, Morgul Knights, are staying,
Yeah.
which they I feel like they have less of a right to keep existing as a profile than some of the other things that are being removed, like orc trackers.
Yeah, I
Because
wonder if like the one argument is the mouth is in the film, therefore there might be more. Maybe you could maybe
right,
stretch it like that.
and there was reference to like Black Númenóreans and stuff in the books, I think, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that was another niche reference similar to like Khand and the Mahood, where like they don't really have a lot going on,
mm,
and they're hardly, I mean, there's only the mouse in the film, so it's interesting that they chose to keep them, which is
yeah.
sad because Terror Wall means will still continue to exist, but
Uh, But
um,
there might be a point adjustment that makes the Terra Wall, a natural investment instead of going, ha ha ha, ha I can spam this.
yeah, true. Maybe it's like you can only take them with the mouth, or who knows. But
Mm.
then the Witch King of Ingmar is just being sold separately from the Ring Race of Ingmar, so we're losing the Dwemerlake and the Tainted, but we're keeping the Witch King of Ingmar, obviously, so he's just getting a single blister.
Oh,
And then,
I'd say, didn't he already remove him? I thought when we got Plastic Witch King, obviously he was now on his own, and they took the Witch King, the old metal / resin Witch King, out of the Angmar set because the Ring Race of Angmar for a while has just been the Tainted and the Dwimmerlack.
oh, true. Yeah, then I don't know why they put it under this header. We'll find out, I guess.
We will,
Um,
yeah.
the miniatures removed from the game, so they're referencing Shagrat in
War
parentheses
Leader variant.
war leader, which was a version of Shagrat in the Hobbit edition. He didn't have this version like by name in this edition, but I
Mm,
think they're getting rid of Shagrat's shield,
yeah,
and
that's what I think it is as well.
his Shagrat in the movies doesn't go around and knock people over with a shield like Captain America. He jumps out a window. So
It'd be funny if he's allowed to wear the mithril vest, because he holds it in his hand. Just
that
like,
would
yeah,
be
you get
funny.
+2 defense from that.
Or like if he is holding it, right? Like there's some sort
Yeah.
of like benefit for like an aura benefit. He counts as a banner while he has the mithril vest.
Or like,
Um,
if you include Shagrat with the mithril vest in your army, then your opponent is not allowed to take the mithril vest. So no
that'd be so
Frodo with
cool.
mithril vest or Bilbo with no mithril vest. That'd be hilarious, and I'm here for it. But I'm
Yeah,
also like, I can't see them doing that.
oh, that'd be great. Um, Gundabad and Dol Guldur, we're losing Castellans of Dol Guldur to
Big
Legacy, and
Sedge.
the Spider Queen is going to Legacy. Two units that
Yeah.
were Games Workshop inventions,
Mm.
that were created in the Hobbit era for a couple, like in one supplement. It was the Rise of the Necromancer, I think was actually the name of the book, which is funny
Yeah.
because later we have the Fall of the Necromancer.
Yeah.
Um, but Castellans were a random hero unit that like always confused me when I was younger. I was like, what are these things? Are they ring race? They're really cool though. They're really tanky, really beefy, but kind of makes sense that they're disappearing because now we
Yeah.
have the Nazgul from the Hobbit movie that kind of fit that character role.
For
Um,
sure. Castles are always a nice like supplement piece. You don't want to take all of the Nazgul of Dol Guldur because they're not all good. And
right.
these guys were 35 points cheaper or 30 points cheaper if you didn't take the Morgul Blade. They were a solid
Mhm.
profile, but yeah, complete GW invention. We know why they're going.
Yeah. And then Spider Queen disappearing also is sad, but kind of also makes a little sense. Like
For
you could
sure.
assume that there is a queen of the spiders or something that's like leading the spiders that Bilbo fights in the
Yeah.
book. But like, yeah, I mean, her disappearing is painful for the side of evil losing a monstrous charge piece, but maybe monsters are going to get better anyways. That maybe you don't feel so bad and you play with Mordor trolls instead.
Yeah, it just kind of annihilates fell beings of Mirkwood altogether, though. They've lost their war leader of the North, Razgush, and they've lost their Spider
Mhm.
Queen.
Yeah, a whole legendary legion's been poofed, but well,
Yep.
at least till legacy, till legacy.
Yeah, it's
Mirkwood,
legacy.
Mirkwood,
Brandon
were
loses horse.
which is cool. Thranduil's Halls. It looks like it might get renamed to Mirkwood,
Yep.
which I would be excited for. I don't like Thranduil's Halls as a title. That's just a me thing. I preferred that they were named after the forest that they're in, similar to like. Well, I guess the Florin isn't named after the Golden Woods, but whatever. Um, I really love the word Mirkwood.
Well, I
So
mean, that's what we
if
all refer to them as, isn't it? You know,
Mhm.
the faction might be Halls of Thranduil, but if you're a fan of the lore or have even watched the films, it's the Elves of Mirkwood or just the Mirkwood Elves.
Yeah, and so keeping Mirkwood also means that's less confusing when you have the profile of the Mirkwood elves. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good change. But we're losing Thranduil's horse because there's no
Yep.
horse Thranduil model. So losing that kind of makes sense. I also don't think you see him ride a horse in the movies. He's only ever riding the elk.
I think he does have a horse model, but he only ever rides the elk in the film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Thranduil,
Yeah,
King of Mirkwood, the current set, he does have a horse. So there is a horse model, but he's never in the film. He's never seen riding a horse in the film, as far as I'm aware. Like even the opening
gotcha.
scene of The Hobbit 1, I'm sure he's on his elk then. And then obviously in Battle of Five Armies, he's still on his elk. But yeah,
Yeah,
his horse is gone. I can see them well, it's not being repackaged as far as we know. But like Thranduil,
yeah,
King of Milkwood at the moment is Thranduil with one sword and no armor, Thranduil in armor and both his swords and his circlet, and then with his circlet and armor on a horse. I can see that horse going, and we just get those two versions of
yeah.
Thranduil, maybe.
And I think there's a typo here on the website. I'm just going to assume it's a copy paste error. That it says miniatures removed from the game in reference to Thranduil on horse, and not saying, and it doesn't say that it's entering legacies. But I'm just going to assume that that's like an error until shown otherwise. Well, actually, hold on, because Shagrat is being removed from the game and not
Mm.
entering legacies. So no, that I guess it's not a typo. So Thranduil on horse as a concept is not even going to enter legacy.
Yep,
He's just
gone.
out of the game,
Yep.
which is I guess it's fine.
The only Thranduil mount will be the elk
Oh well.
from the new edition. Aye.
Um, so
Here we go.
Isengard,
Here's the pain section. Here's the
here
pain.
it is. Oh, we're losing.
Miniatures removed from sale and entering legacies. We've got Fryden, oof. Frida, oof. Gorulf, big oof. The Dunlending Chieftain, ow. Huskars, ah. Warriors, Jesus Christ. Horsemen, no. However, the Crabine survived.
Yeah, the Crowmen are still there because they're in the movies.
Yeah, they're in the films. They're in the films. Saruman uses those crows all the time. Yeah, no, for
So
such interesting and cool names and profiles that are, of course, GW invention, just seeing all this go, because obviously we've got the War of the Rohirrim coming up, where we're going to have the Men of Dunland, the Hillmen, the Rohan traitors, all under usurpers of Edoras. Maybe there might be two legions, there might be usurpers of Edoras, and then maybe after Freka dies, there might be like a subsection of Army of Wolf. We don't know. I don't think that, but they could do that maybe. We'll just see how broad these new legions are that we're getting. But yeah,
yeah,
just like modern day, well, air quotations, War of the Ring era Dunland is gone.
yeah.
It's reduced to Wildman and Crabane and the Oathmaker.
Which we don't see any of these characters in the movies.
Nope,
Even
we
though
don't.
so Dunland does help in the siege against Helm's Deep in the books. There's
Yes,
also
it does.
goblins there too. There's goblins from Moria that help in the siege against Helm's Deep, which I really hope that they maybe touch on that. But anyways, losing this, we're losing the Games Workshop invented version of Dunland, which absolutely makes sense from the point of view that they want to have Dunland be its own faction. It's
Yeah,
gonna be based basically on the World of Hero alone. And
Yeah.
they did say that Dunland is going to be present within what it's called, what is it, the Army of the White
Army of the
Hand.
White Hand. Yeah, it said there, and the Hillmen have been sympathetically. I still don't get why they put that there. Designed to also be used as wild men of Dunland in the Army of the White Hand. It's like,
Yeah.
right, okay, so the Hillmen for War of the Rohirrim, or for Usurpers of Edoras, are also going to be the new Wildmen models. Just cool that Wildmen are getting an update.
Mhm.
The metal models, I still think they have the charm, but now, at least they have bows and spears, which is nice.
Yeah, and the Hillmen, since they have bows and shields and spears now, they're gonna they're gonna have a loadout similar to the Dunlending warriors, just without
Yeah,
potentially without armor. We don't know if they're gonna be defense 3 or defense 4, and then 5 with the shield, or
yeah.
4 with the
We don't
shield.
know yet, do we? Yeah.
But I think, like, as sad as it is, it kind of makes sense that they're gonna focus on Dunland as we get to see it instead of Dunland as we could theorize.
Yeah.
And I think Army of the White Hand having the wild men of Dunland, hillmen, and probably I mean, we're going to see the Oathmaker because he's going to be repackaged separately. So we're going
Yep.
to see the Oathmaker leading hillmen. We're going to see hillmen just existing, being led by Saruman, and I think.
Both Saruman and the Oathmaker, I think.
True. And
There
then we're
might
going
there
to.
might be like as we've seen with the new Lord Thorn model. Lord Thorn can only include Rohan traitors in his warband. Maybe to include Wild Men of Dunland in an Army of the White Hand list, you have to take the Oathmaker.
That's true. Yeah, maybe that is an Oathmaker exclusive.
Yeah.
Um, they didn't. They're not legacying Wildmen chieftains, so we might still see that. But
Wildman Chieftains weren't a thing this edition, Chief.
oh, they weren't even. They didn't even
No,
exist in this.
just
Wow,
Dunlending Chieftains, which were the Dunlending warriors on steads.
that's right. Okay, sorry, that was previous edition. That Dunland, that Wildmen had a chief. So yeah, it'll
Brilliant.
be just be Oathmaker squad. Oh wow. I can't talk about Dunland anymore because I'll shed a tear. So we'll move on to Maher, Vrasku, and the Feral Urukai.
Yeah.
Maher has a name. Maher was in the book. He
Yep.
smells man flesh, and he's
He does.
now disappearing.
Yep.
It's I mean, Vrasku, I can understand. Like, he's a random Urka with a crossbow, doesn't like that has no existence. I mean, he's also a crossbowman that wears just armor, not heavy armor. So
Yep. So it's implied
he
that he's with Ugluk Scouts, isn't it?
yeah, and he doesn't make any appearance, so it makes sense that Vrasku's disappearing. I can get that. And Pharaoh Urkai, well, okay. Here's gonna be my like, yes moment. I'm actually glad that Pharaoh Urkai is disappearing. I hated the concept of Pharaoh Urkai because if we're
Ooh.
going by the movie where like the Pharaoh Urkai were being grown in vats and sent out to war, like how is there enough time? Because in the lore for the Pharaoh Urkai describes that like over the years they've like become wild as they get lost in the woods or whatever, and it's like okay, that's
Yeah.
cool from like a theoretical aspect for like a post-apocalyptic Middle Earth side of things. Like
Yeah.
I could see Pharaoh Urkai in the Fourth Age as like dudes who are still out in Fangorn Forest and don't know the war's over, but like it just doesn't make sense for me from a verisimilitude aspect that there are feral Urukai in Isengard. So I'm glad that they are disappearing and that the Isengard Berserker has now finally reclaimed its throne as the only two-attack model for Isengard in
To be
terms of
fair, I mean, that's
warriors.
what everyone said, wasn't it? It was like, I want to take some Feral Urukai. Why aren't you taking a Berserker?
Yeah,
Well,
and
Berserker's so much more expensive for a reason, because he's that much better.
yeah, and in the Hobbit edition, that the Urkai Berserker was defense 6, but he was still not as good as the Feral Urkai because the Feral Urkai were like vastly cheaper because they were like
Mm,
4 points cheaper, and weapon swaps were free. So you're running around with Strength 5 to attack Feral Urkai,
yeah,
and it was like they were really competitive, and Berserkers were not. And then
yeah,
in this current edition, they nerfed Berserkers, but also upgraded them, and it kind of sucks how they did it. I kind of
yeah,
hope that they're Defense 6 in the new edition again.
yeah.
But
Base instead of just defense 6 versus shots. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, or they should be like defense 7 against shots, so that way it's not just anti-elf bow, it's also anti-crossbow. Um, so their
I wouldn't
defense.
mind I wouldn't mind going the other way around. I wouldn't mind if their defense stayed the same. It's just their feel no pain got better because they're berserk.
True. Yeah, if they were 5+, feel no pain, or even 4+, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, make it a 4. It's a 50-50 every time. I stabbed you in the belly. I don't care. I stabbed you in the belly again. This time I did.
Yeah, that's like, not a bad way to do it. But losing Maher is disappointing. I really, really hope, and the biggest reason that I'm sad about Maher disappearing is, I mean, aside from the fact that he's in the media, which is inconsistent with Games Workshop's explanation so far, right? They've said that things are leaving if they're not represented in the movies and the books. I mean, Maher is represented, so it's kind of sad that he's disappearing. But maybe what, or sorry, what I'm most sad about is that we might be losing 8-inch move Urkai scouts.
I reckon they are definitely gone unless maybe the scouts version of Isengard or whatever that list is maybe has it innately.
Yes. I hope that Urkai scouts get 8-inch as their base movement value, so that there's an actual choice between them and the Urkai warriors. Because otherwise, you're paying 1 point. I mean, not that we know what the points are going to look like, but in the current edition, you're paying 1 point to go to defense 6, which is just always worth it. And so I'm really hoping that Maher disappearing is not going to lose us movement 8 on our scouts, because I love scouts. They're my favorite, like Isengard, warriors and everything. So I really hope that we don't lose
I
them.
respect that choice. Yeah. No, I can't see scouts going obviously because they're in the film, but losing
Right.
the 8 inches completely. Yeah, I can see why that's a bit of a pain, but um, we'll have to see what happens because obviously if the forces are supposed to represent what's on screen, maybe scouts and regular Urkai warriors are never seen together. Maybe scouts can only ever go with like Lurtz and an army of the White Hand, forego scouts completely. Maybe. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah. I mean, because if you think about Battle for Middle Earth 1, right, you had Lurtz's scouts army, and then you
Yeah.
had Saruman's army. So
Yeah.
that's actually, a pretty good point that there's.
Potentially. Yeah, the potential's there. We don't know, but yeah.
I also would love to have 8-inch move scouts being led by Saruman. That'd be sweet. But
No.
the other, so, and then the minor note here is that Grima is losing his horse.
Not surprised. You don't see him with one in the film, but he is a man of Rohan. Like he knows how to ride one. But yeah, you don't see him with one in the film. It's gone. Fair enough. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
Thranduil treatment in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think because the only time you maybe see him ride a horse. Oh, that's right. The only time you see him ride a horse is when he's fleeing Eldoras, right?
Oh, in the
And
extended edition, yeah, he goes. Obviously, he gets all the people out of his way with like, "Get out of my way!" And then I think
yeah,
you see him jump onto a horse, and that's about it. He's never had a model for a horse, has he?
no, he hasn't. It's always been conversions, and they're removing
Yeah.
it, which is sad because you do see it.
Yep.
But oh well, what you gonna do? You're
No.
not gonna have rapid transit anti-might happen anymore. Um, so it's a pretty big blow to Dunland, a minor blow to Isengard. I mean, okay, it's a catastrophic blow to Dunland, but also Dunland is being reinvented, so I
100%.
think
Yeah.
they're going to be fine. If you really like Dunland as a faction in the books, I think you're okay. If you only liked Dunland as models and profiles, then of course you're going to be disappointed.
Well, you just wanted to play the Viking-looking dudes in MESBG. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess play Rohan now.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
then
You stuck with the Saxon likes dudes. That's it. There you go.
um, all right, so Gondor. These ones, we're losing the Knight of the White Tower, Onborn and Moblung, Irian, Men at Arms of Dol Amroth, which we're going to touch on for a second. Miniatures that are being renamed or repackaged. We're seeing the Knight of the White Tower being removed from the
Removed from the
miniatures
Commander's
commander
section.
set. And then Baragond is going to be sold separately because he was originally paired with Irian,
Tyrion. Yep.
which was a repackaging because originally Kyrian came with Madril.
Yep.
But Knight of the White Tower, losing that, he was a cool guy. I don't have a lot of notes here. I mean, he's a cool guy, and I don't want to disrespect Knight of the White Tower, but it makes sense that this guy is kind of another one of those random heroes that was being invented, similar to Kirian.
Yep.
Kirian's another random
This.
hero that was invented
Yep.
during the Hobbit era, so poof, they're gone.
Anborn and Mablung are both in the book.
Yeah, they're in the book,
And it
and they're
throws
also
me.
technically in the movie. But because if you look at I don't think they're in the credits, which I guess is fair.
They're not credited.
But in if you like go to the Tolkien wiki and stuff, and you look up Onborn and Mont Blanc, there's images for each of them of who the community thinks were Onborn and Mont Blanc.
Yeah, from the films, which is fair enough.
Yeah,
But
which is fair. But losing the book, like they're in the book, we're losing them, and maybe it's because Games Workshop feels that there is too many named heroes in Gondor, and you
maybe,
don't.
but I mean, as we know, they're changing the way they build their armies. They could literally just be featured in only Rangers of Aphelion if that stays as a list, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just that that's where you only ever saw them anyway. I don't think I've ever seen Anborn or Mablung outside of a Rangers of Aphelion Legendary Legion list.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen them in Mish. Actually, I've seen Anborn in a Fantasy Fellowship once, and that's about it.
Hmm.
He took up a space of Merry or Pippin, because he's a cheap model that can fit in, and he's got a decent profile for the cost.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think I maybe took Onborn once as a replacement for Damrod or Baragond being a cheap minor hero in Gondor.
fair,
But
fair.
losing
Anborn was
them,
definitely the better of the two, but yeah, losing both of them, I'm kind of like they exist in the book. I know the license might be the films, but at the start of the article, it literally mentions whether they're in the films or the books. And we're
yeah,
getting the Armies of Middle Earth army book, which is about stuff that doesn't appear in the films. So I'm like, those guys could definitely, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they're just going. We've got way too many heroes from Minas Tirith. Well, Gondor as it's called now, which is going to be Minas Tirith and the Fightoms because they've listed Men at Arms of Dol Amroth under here. Cool,
hmm
I get it. Makes sense. No need to make them two separate armies, but like, I want to know how we get to field them and if alliances are still a thing and such. Because, yeah,
yeah. So briefly, I mean, Baragond is surviving because he has a big role in the books. Like he has a
yes,
pretty big role, so I'm glad he's around. But Men at Arms
substantial
of Dol
role.
Dol Amroth, we're losing the Men at Arms of Dol Amroth. We're keeping, however, the Knights of Dol Amroth. We're keeping the Axemen of Lossark. We're keeping the
Mm-hmm,
Clansmen of Lamadon. We're keeping
mm-hmm,
the Blackroot Vale Archers. So
mm-hmm.
these, which all were in the books. You saw them
Yep.
because Baragond and Pippin watch them all walk through the
Yeah, they
gate.
watch the
So I'm
parade. Yep.
I'm glad that they're sticking around, and I'm actually glad that Gondor and the fiefdoms are now one list again because I think
Yeah.
they were one list before, and then they got split up in this edition, and now they're coming back, which I think is awesome because
Yeah.
it's no longer Minas Tirith, it's now Gondor. Gondor is an army, and if they're doing the armies of legions of Middle Earth and they're doing the legendary legions, we'll see them split up anyways. But Gondor, or like split up differently, anyways. But if let's assume that each of these is just a faction, right?
Yep. Yeah, I
Um,
reckon these are the new names of factions. 100%.
yeah, having Gondor, and I hope maybe that they're not just headers. Like this is Gondor, and then it's every legendary legion for Gondor. But that aside, we're gonna ignore that.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the models. I'm
Yeah.
excited for the fact that even though we're losing men at arms of Dol Amroth, which is really sad, we're losing pikes. We're at least keeping the rest of them, and they can now, in theory, blend together a little bit more, and that's
Oh
cool.
yeah, now the Knights of Dharma are going to be the elite cav, aren't they? Of
Hmm.
Gondor. Have
Yeah,
Imrahil and his elite cavalry section, which is the book. That's who they were in the book. They were the Swan Knights, the elite knights from the realms of Gondor, from the fiefdoms of Gondor, from Belfalas, from Dol Amroth.
yeah, and there's a chance, right? There is a chance. Now I doubt that they're gonna allow Gondor, Captain of the White Tower, with his banner to lead Knights of Dol Amroth, but in the event that they are paired together,
Mm.
there's a solid chance that we're going to see Fight 5 ignoring the fact that fight is moving around a bunch.
Ignoring that fights go around, there's potentially fight 5, potentially fight 6 Knights of the Lamroth that don't require a Green Alliance. It's going to be one
which is
faction.
cool. I'm pretty excited for the fact that we're going to see Gondor as a blend of fiefs coming together. It's Minas Tirith.
Well, yeah, it's a whole realm now, isn't it? It's not split off. It's the whole realm of Gondor as one heading, one faction.
Which is cool. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too.
Misty Mountains. So we are keeping. They're going to be renamed or repackaged as a pair. Durbers and Druzag are going to stay as named goblin leaders. Now, it might be that Durbers gets renamed to Goblin King, and Druzag gets renamed to Goblin Beast Wizard. But
or Shaman or something. Oh, one of those Shamans are staying. It's the Black Shields there. But yeah, renamed or repackaged. They could keep their names and just be repackaged together. They're going to be your 2 named Goblin heroes. That's it. Or as you say, they could be getting renamed. They could get some more generic names, as you said, like Goblin King.
We're losing Groblog, which was, Groblog and Durbers and Druzag and Ashrak. Ashrak's another profile that we're losing. We're all named goblins that were invented because Games Workshop needed to have some named heroes for Moria that weren't just the Balrog. Now, interestingly enough, the Misty Mountains is the name of this faction. It's not Moria. It's now the Misty Mountains.
Yep.
Which is...
That makes more sense.
It's very interesting.
The entire range.
They're going to represent, more than just Moria, which also maybe means that Misty Mountains goblins might be present at Helm's Deep, like in the books, but whatever. So we're losing to Legacy Groblog and Ashrak, so we're losing the second flavor of a Goblin King within the Moria, fold.
Yeah,
we're
losing
the
fight buffer. Yeah,
and we're losing the invisibility spider shaman, Ashrak, which is both sad. They've been around in the game for quite a while. I think they even predate the Hobbit era, because they were introduced kind of in between just before the Hobbit edition, but I could be wrong. So these are like some old profiles that are disappearing. We're also losing to Legacy the Dweller in the Dark, which is a very kind of vague unit. It kind of makes sense because it kind of was just really weird. And I think there was mention of Dwellers in the Dark, right? But I think that was less of a literal term and more of like in reference to the goblins and the Watcher and the Balrog, right? And so the Dweller in the Dark as like a vague entity is disappearing. And while unfortunate because they were fun, if you were cool, losing them is understandable. And then Moria Black Shield Captain, Moria Black Shield Shaman, Moria Black Shield Drummers, and Moria Black Shield Warrior are all disappearing.
Shields are gone. Yep.
They're just gone. And they were another GW random unit invention that to just fill out things and sell models and to be interesting. Now they were dominant. The Black Shield Warriors at the time were Gundabad Black Shield Warriors before the Hobbit movies. And they were dominant because they were so cheap, and they were defense 6, and they were strength 4. They were insane. But we're losing them entirely in place of just having Moria Goblins, and that honestly makes sense. We haven't seen them really in the meta too much, other than the Shamans and the Drummer in the current edition. Losing them all together makes sense. It's another random unit, just like the Warg Marauder, which is a random mini war beast, whatever. I don't even know what you call it. It's a cav model that's not a cav model, and it's disappearing. It was such a goofy...
There was a few real questions and things that popped up with the interactions with that model. And as you said, it was kind of like a goofy cav model. That's not quite a cav model, but it is a cav model with extra steps and stuff.
And it's like really strong, but it was just so random. It was like, why? I mean, yes, there was in The Hobbit goblins that rode the wolves to chase Thorin's company. So maybe we'll see goblin wolf riders. That would be sick. But I'm glad that Warg Marauders are disappearing just from like a a didn't really feel right kind of point of view.
Fair enough. Yeah. For myself, having faced a list with 10 of the horrible things in, yeah, I'm not sad to see them go, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who played Moria really enjoyed the model and enjoyed the goofy aspect of it, and how it looked and how good the conversions you could do for them as well.
Mhm.
Like it's three goblins on the back of a warg. You could do a lot with that and then make it pretty cool, pretty fun, etc. But yeah, no, they're legacy now, so you won't be seeing them as much. I do not think.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's Moria or Misty
Yep,
Mountains now.
Misty Mountains as it is now. Aye.
Elven Kingdoms is actually a pretty short, well, a relatively short discussion. So the Elven Kingdoms, I think that this is just loosely saying. I don't think that Rivendell and Lothlorien are becoming one kingdom again.
I agree.
I think this is just they wanted to really briefly touch on it without having a minuscule of a section. Um,
Well,
basically, this is
it's basically just Rivendell, but obviously they've actually been called Rivendell, hasn't it? But we've got people who aren't around in Rivendell, under Rivendell, such as Gilgalad. Like
mhm,
that dude ran the kingdom. Kieran, who's always been at the Great Havens, he's all. I think it's just a matter of, without calling them high elves, it's the elves in Eregion.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
not
It's
Eregion,
it's Riven
Eriador.
right. It's the Rivendell, Mithland, and
Mm,
Noldorn elves, but in either case, we're lose. This is this is the example of a model that is being removed from the game because it didn't exist. So the unarmored variation of Eladin and Elrahir are being removed, as well as, well, Eldon and Elrahir are losing their unarmored form. You have to take them with armor, which I
yep.
think makes sense because they didn't have an unarmored model. Um,
Oh no,
however,
yeah, I
oh, did
guess
they?
I'm thinking of the old models. They do have like chainmail on. It's not a lot of armor, but there's still a little bit of armor. So yeah, sure.
Yeah. Meanwhile, um, Glorfindel and Elrond are losing their unarmored forms. You're only going to have Glorfindel in armor, and Elrond is only going to be in armor. You can't have Council of Elrond, and you can't have Glorfindel rides to the rescue of Aragorn and Frodo, Glorfindel. It has to be Glorfindel in full kit,
The
which,
distinction between the
is...
two is obviously Glorfindel unarmored is entering Legacies, where Profile removed is Elrond unarmored. So Elrond
True.
can never take armor. Glorfindel unarmored, you could still take him in Legacies if you're
Yeah.
playing a game with Legacied profiles. Which
And
I want to know, why is that? Why is that distinction there? Because we see Elrond without armor in the films often.
yeah. And I think there is a model for Elrond unarmored, right?
There is,
Like,
yeah, there is. It was the one with Tyrion, isn't there? An Elrond on foot with no armor, not Syrian, Lindia.
yeah, so I guess they're just always going to assume that Elrond is wearing like a bulletproof vest.
Yeah,
Um,
he's always got his armor on. You're not getting Elrond of I'm at home with my feet up, chatting shit. I've got
yeah,
Elrond the fighter. That's all. That's all you've got now.
and then we're losing another book character, and Eristor I think is also a book character. We're losing Gildor
Yes.
and Glorian to Legacy, and we're losing Eristor. Gildor has a whole sequence in the books.
Yep.
But he's being removed.
He's also the
Eristor,
model that gets paired with the unarmored Glorfindel on the store.
oh yeah, true.
Yep.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's probably why
that's
he's
that pack
bouncing.
gone. Yep.
Yeah,
And then
and
yeah,
then
restore.
so probably what they were thinking was they're like, well, if we're already getting rid of Glorfindel without armor, let's also just get rid of Gildor, or vice versa. Like that was probably
Yeah.
the thought process. Like, why repackage? Which is sad because Gildor, I mean, and I
Gildor's
guess
cool.
to be fair, Gildor, I guess what they're thinking is that, oh, but Gildor even fights in the book. He helps them against the ring race, doesn't he?
Uh,
He like helps the hobbits get through the forest.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I think it's when they think they're being tracked, and then all of a sudden, Gildor shows up, and the Ringwraith like legs it, and he's just kind of like, "You two should not be walking the roads alone." and then they chill with Gildor for an entire chapter as he takes them.
Yeah.
He takes them to Bree, I think.
He takes him not. I don't think he takes him all the way, but he does take him.
No, yeah, he does take him a while away, doesn't he? He's there for a chapter. I know that much. I haven't
Yeah.
read the book in like 2 years.
These are two, I guess, like minor elf characters, and maybe they're just trying to focus more on the other sides of the elf, factions and more of the wartime. Like Aristor is in. I mean, I don't know much about Aristor, to be honest.
I'm pretty
He is
sure he's
cool.
mentioned by name in the Council of Elrond at the meeting to discuss what they're doing with the ring. And I think the little blurb that we get in the MESBG Armies of Lord of the Rings pretty much describes him as Elrond's right hand man, without besmirching Glorfindel, obviously.
Yeah.
Glorfindel isn't Elrond's right hand man. Glorfindel is the Valar's right hand man.
Yeah. So
that's how much of a chatty he is. But yeah, I think it's one of those council members that could have been at the Battle of the Last Alliance. That's why he got Terror, like the other Elven lords, and he was at the council in the book, but he's literally just named in like one line off the top of my head, and they're just like, yeah, we'll do away with him.
Which I guess, like, if we're thinking about this, and I kind of wish we were able. I don't want to try to draw graphics for this, but if we're thinking about the different categories, there's removal because they don't have a model with that war gear. There's removal because it's not in the book or the movies, and then there's this other category that they didn't really mention, but they're doing, which was being removed because the role that they had was so minor that it doesn't warrant them making a profile or a unit for it. So Moblung and Onborn, Aristor, Gildor, Maher, these are all characters that had an appearance, but Games Workshop doesn't feel that it is enough to justify their inclusion, which is controversial. But at this point, what are you gonna do? And which sadly brings us to Rohan, where we're losing two really big names in the Rohan character list, at least in my opinion, right? So we're losing. I'll go through the list and then we'll kind of talk about the ones that we feel the most about. So we're losing Grimbold and the Helminga's command. We're losing Yorl the Young. We're losing Erkenbrand, Rohan Outriders, Son of Yorl, King's Huntsman, and then the Rohan commanders are just going to be repackaged without the Huntsman. And it is such a devastating reality that we're losing Grimbold before he ever got a horse, and we're losing Erkenbrand, who showed up to save Helm's Deep. And I guess what they're doing is that they're specifically going to say that what happened in the books for Helm's Deep doesn't exist. Grimbold also doesn't deserve a horse or to exist. So Erkenbrand is disappearing, right? Because he's the guy that shows up to save the day at Helm's Deep, and they're just saying that Aomer is him. So they are doing a super hybrid mash of the movies and the books, and making decisions of who deserves to stay between the two. And it's sad that we're losing Erkenbrand after his Westfold Red Shield era was at a high and then became an all-time low. And then we're losing Grimbold when he was giving me strength 4 Rohan troops, and he was just running around force to two-hand, and he one-shot an Azog's White Warg for me, and he one-shot a Bulk for me, and now I don't get to play him anymore, as far as official GW events are concerned. So at least he's sticking around. At least Erkenbrand's still sticking around, but that is sad.
Despite Théoden telling Grimbold in the film to take his Aerid down the west flank, I think he says.
Yeah.
Despite Grimbold being named, and obviously that's what we all meme on in the community. Like, Grimbold should have a horse. Théoden literally talks to him on a horse, and we see him ride away on a horse at that famous scene at Pelennor. Dino just kind of went, yeah, nah, entering Legacy.
And I think
Grimbold handling his command. Erkenbrand, as you said, he's famous in the book for helping save Helm's Deep. That was his area. The reason he weren't at Helm's Deep is because he rode out to try and I think it was to support Theodred, because obviously the Battle of the Fords of Eyes and the Siege of Helm's Deep are like within days of each other, and that's a lot of ground to cover, as well as the Siege of Edoras. The Siege of Edoras happens during the attack of the Siege of Helm's Deep, and obviously Gandalf's running around trying to gather up everybody to come and help out Helm's Deep. But yeah, no, I can. Erkenbrand was the second Rohan hero I bought when I first got into the edition back in 2020 during the COVID times. Like I had the Pelennor set, I had the Fellowship, I had the ring wraiths of the Fallen Realms, and then my second ever purchase was Erkenbrand. I got a lot of love for that model. I played him. He was in my first tournament. I took him. I do have 5 of my Riders of Rohan with red shields painted just like his. It was a really cool small section of my Rohan armies, and now it's just that's legacy now. He was just a solid named captain character. And I can understand like maybe trimming some of the Rohan stuff down, but like Grimbold's literally named in the film. Sure, named only. He's. I guess we see like a very brief scene of him riding off to go get in front of his line, and that's about it. But
I'm assuming
who doesn't feature in the films at all, like sure.
I'm assuming that what they're gonna, we're going to a pre-Hobbit era sort of feel, where some characters that were just a character who had a name is going to be relegated to, it's going to be on the player to take their captain of Rohan and actually name him something. Because
you'd expect the same for like Dealwine though, wouldn't you? Because Dealwine's only named once in the book, but he's not in the legacy section here.
That is like an inconsistency here. It's just, I guess, because like, I mean, Hama is still sticking around, but we do get to see him in action in the movies.
Yep.
And I'm just guessing that there's going to be some expectation that like that GW has, right? Not of us, like we should be doing it, but like if they really want to represent Grimbold, if they really want to represent Erkenbrand or Eristor, then they'll take the High Elf captain, they'll take the Rohan captain, and they will just title it Rohan captain, Grimbold, played by Grimbold, or Grimbold played by Rohan captain.
But, and then here's my Rohan captain. It's the Erkenbrand model. If you have the Erkenbrand model, he's supposed to be Erkenbrand because that's how I want to represent him.
Yeah, and so we're also alongside that Ural the Young and son of Ural, the founders of Rohan. Are being
I completely understand this one. Literally only mentioned in the appendix, appendices even. Appendices. Ignore me. Yeah, literally mentioned there. The brief blurb that we get in the Armies of book for Sons of Yall is that they can be used in like Théoden's army because they're like a elite of the elite unit. But people only ever took them if they took Yola Young for that lovely +1 attack bonus.
Yeah. And I can understand, like, I can understand that. And losing them is losing basically a sub faction, but
it's like an LL before LLs were a thing, weren't they? Yola Young and a King of Men from Minas Tirith. That's the most common way you play it. It was as you say, it's like losing a sub faction under Rohan with the loss of the Young and son of Earl.
And I know that Lowlands Wargaming ran Ural the Young and a King of Man as their army to like
600 points.
Success.
Yeah, he is. And he even did a video on it, didn't he? Like a wee 600 points.
A really good video too.
How to make it. Yeah, I'm surprised Outriders are going, but I'm also like, since Riders of Rohan do what they do, but it was the Outriders just didn't have a shield and improved their shooting value. They're great objective pieces, play wise. Playing wise, they're great for going to sit on an objective because they benefit from stand fast anywhere. That was their rule. But I can understand why they're going, but I am a bit salty that I only bought a pair last year for a list. and now they're legacied. I'm like, bruh, Come on.
And there was a good, they had that good use because I mean, Outriders did basically exist in the books by name, but really you would just assume that that was a writer of Rohan,
Yeah.
and it's sad because you're losing the 3+ shoot value in the Rohan list for like mass. If Rohan wanted to bring a bunch of bows, they would either bring Outriders or they'd bring a bunch of bowmen with throwing spear. And losing the 3+ value shoot option is a little sad. That also had that stand fast mechanic, but I can understand that they, similar to orc trackers or similar to other random like Blackguard of Barad-dûr, not to say that they are of the same ilk, right? Rotan Outriders had way more use than like Blackguard of Barad-dûr, but it does make sense that they're trying to simplify the factions a little bit here. And to that effect, we're losing the King's Huntsman, which was such a very niche longbow wielding Rohan hero that had like that kind of was just invented again, like another weird invention that was cool, very cool, but undeniably a random invention that was infantry only and didn't have a lot of use cases. That does make sense that he's disappearing.
Yeah, it's definitely like you only ever saw him with Yola Young or no, yeah, that's the two only type. Oh, or Helm, but obviously Helm's getting redone now. Obviously with the film, you don't really see him anywhere else. I'm not surprised the King Huntsman's going, and obviously the repackaging of Rohan Commanders is just gonna cut him out. So we're still getting a Warhorn guy, a banner, and a captain on foot. But yeah, the Huntsman's going. Yeah, no surprise there for the King's Huntsman. Kind of sad to go because it's a cool mini. Same with the Outriders, and yeah, Rohan haven't lost a lot, but they definitely lost some character there. They have lost some character in some fun ways to dig your list around for sure.
Yeah, we are also losing. So, in the Dwarven Holds, we're gonna step over to the Dwarven Holds. We are losing to Legacy, of course. Asterisks. We are losing Myrn and Drar, which were two GW invention heroes. Don't have to talk about them too much. They are very cool, very flavorful. They were introduced for the Shadow in the East book, where they teamed up with Kyrian and Madril against Kamul, Easterling army, but it makes sense they're disappearing. Balin, the Dwarf King of Moria, and Floy Stonehand are both disappearing. I'm going to kind of pair them together because they in name are disappearing, which signals the end of the Kingdom of Moria as a list. However,
100%.
I think that we're going to see a Balin's Expedition list. If we're doing the LLs sort of thing, the Legendary Legions sort of flavor, or army, Legions of Middle Earth thing, I think we're going to see an expedition to Moria army. And what I think is going to happen is that it's basically going to ditch the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm units, and it's going to be like Balin, the champion of Erebor, or Balin, Lord of Moria, will become a profile, right? Because he's not a king of Moria, he's a lord of Moria. So we're going to see Balin, Lord of Moria, or Balin, champion of Erebor, teaming up with members of Thorin's company, and they are going to go and lead, probably, I guess, are Iron Hills dwarves, because there were no Moria dwarves to lead on the expedition. We're going to see some sort of like, this is now a War of the Ring era Iron Hills dwarves and or Warriors of Erebor, right? Whatever, right? And we're going to see them be an expedition force, and they're going to be, if they exist, that's how they're going to be represented. Is just them reclaiming Moria rather than them living in Moria.
Yeah, I can't even see that happening. I reckon Balin will be very much just the Balin we see in the films. So that's young Balin in Army of Thrall, and then old Balin in Thorin's company, and champion Balin. As cool as it would be to have an expedition force, just to give Balin a place, because right now, even in Erebor Reclaim list, you don't really see Balin, and in Army of Thrall list, you never see Balin. Whilst having his own expedition force would be cool and give players reason to play him, other than narrative scenarios. I can't see him getting an expedition list, but you're right. Kingdom of Moria, as it stands in MESBG, gone because you
Yeah.
need Barlin, and Floy needs Barlin to be taken anyway. So yeah,
And to
they're gone.
with that, we're losing the King's Champion, which is a huge heart throb for
Been
the
around
dwarf
forever.
community.
Yeah.
And we're losing the Shield Bearer, which is less of a heartthrob. But man, what a sweet miniature that is. I actually really want to get my hands on a Shield Bearer model, just because it's my favorite portrayal of like the dwarfs of Lord of the Rings. Because it's like basically he is very close to being exactly how the Iron Hills dwarves are described in the books.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
head to toe chainmail and everything. So I'm sad to see him go to Legacy and no longer be supported, and I'm sad to see the champion go to Legacy and no longer be supported. But I am curious of what they do with Kingdom of Khazad-dûm and Erebor and Iron Hills, and see kind of what do we get out of it per se.
Yeah.
These are two invention heroes again, so it makes sense that we're going to lose something. And truth be told, while we have lost a huge thing in Balin, the Dwarf King of Moria, and King's Champion and Floy, we're only losing the King's Champion from Durin's army. And while King's Champion is a really, really good unit, that does mean that we're going to see more. Assume that nothing else changes, we're going to see Durin and Dwarf Kings team up, because we're not losing the Dwarf King, we're just losing these guys. So
just Balin and Floy, we're just losing when Moria was taken back. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, we're still going to get the dwarf holdings. We're going to be able to play kings and regular dudes, or play Durin and regular dudes. Do the scenario of when Durin's Bane wakes up to slay him.
Yeah.
I reckon that's going to be around, which is cool.
And hypocritically, we are keeping Martin, which is I believe a GW invention.
Yeah,
and
it's
he's
always
sticking around.
I really like to see the checklist on. I really do.
So doesn't Martin come in the same blister as Durin?
Yes.
So I think that's probably why. I think they don't want to just repackage. It's probably too expensive for them to repackage Durin than it would be to just keep Martin in the game. And so Martin is probably
they're doing it to
sneaking
the
in.
Oathmaker and Beragond. Kind of like, what's driving that?
Maybe they have to draw a line somewhere.
More inconsistency. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And then of course
we're nearly there now.
Dwarf Commanders are being, we're losing
repackaged.
Shield Bearer out of it, which
taking
I
the
kind of wish
Bearer
they
out of
kept the Shield Bearer as a captain option, but whatever.
Yeah.
So Kingdoms of Men. Okay, so this is another title. I don't think this is going to be a faction, but Kingdoms of Men, we are losing.
This is not losing.
No, not
this
losing
is
anything.
repackaging. Yep.
So Rangers of the North are being repackaged. Dunedain are being repackaged. I think they're going to be sold as like a normal purchasing option.
I reckon they're going to be put together. It's just a new way of just saying Rangers or Dunedain, and you're going to have some with armor, some without. To be fair, they look very, very similar anyway. It's just that Rangers of the North can take horses. Dunedain couldn't.
Okay,
I don't know. I could definitely see them just being melded together as here's 6 metal dudes.
Yeah, so the thought that I had was that Rangers of the North and Dunedain are being repackaged to match the MTO. So, because there were like a lot of variations of each of them that like was hard to get your hands on because it was kind of randomized in the blisters. So my thought was that they're going to be separate packages, but you got every sculpt every time. But it is also a possibility that Dunedain and Rangers of the North become one profile, get thrown together in the same box, and Dunedain can just get the option of taking armor, and maybe a horse. But I'm not sure. Towards that, they're gonna just be 2 boxes with every sculpt, but I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see them kind of mashed together into one kit just to save them shelf space.
Yeah, for sure.
If nothing else changes, like just grouping them together in a box to save shelf space probably makes sense. Now we're getting to the last 2.
The Free Peoples just falls under, which is, like, okay, what does that mean? The Free People is like, like I don't know way to put it, because inside the three peoples we have an Ent and a Hobbit. So miniatures removed from Sail and Etching Legacies is Banderboris Took. Okay, so the guy who made golf by killing golf thimbles going. Okay, yeah, I get it. Fair enough. That's one section of Shire gone.
Yeah.
And then miniatures renamed or repackaged. Birchseed. Quickbeam has been reassigned as Birchseed. Now, this is the only renaming where we've got this. So, like, renamed or repackaged, where we've got this. So, if we look back at other stuff that's saying being renamed or repackaged, like, it lends credence, like, as we just discussed, Rangers of the North and Dunedain, miniatures renamed or repackaged. Me saying those two could come together, maybe they would have stated that, like they have with the Commanders packs, saying, here's the Commanders pack's got the same name, it's just removing this. But here we have Birchseed. Quickbeam has been reassigned to Birchseed. Now, Quickbeam was named in the book.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, why Birchseed?
So, if I recall, so they there was like a mistake, and I think I forget who it was that was talking about it, but so Quickbeam and Birchseed were both intended to have profiles, and I think what ended up happening was that they made the Birchseed profile and named it Quickbeam on accident.
Interesting.
And so the idea was that they were going to have multiple named Ents, and they just couldn't do it. And then there was a theoretical editing error where Quickbeam got to have the spotlight and cheated Birchseed out of it. I hope that what this is signaling is that Birchseed is taking over Quickbeam's profile, and we're going to get an actual Quickbeam. Oh no, that's right. That was the error. The model, I think it is what it is. The model for Quickbeam isn't Quickbeam. The model for Quickbeam is Birchseed. So visually, you're playing as Birchseed, but with the name Quickbeam, and so they're giving it back. And I hope that they make Quickbeam a model, because Quickbeam looks
I
way
thought the
different.
model was. I thought Quickbeam's model was Beachbone, because obviously we've got the Beachbone profile.
That's true. Okay, that's the error. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. So they're probably going to have a Birchseed Quickbeam and a Beachbone model to go with Beard, and that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because Ents without Might, Will, and Fate are pretty sad.
Yeah. They are.
So I hope that happens. But we've now gone through the whole list here, and
do you reckon it's exhaustive? Do you reckon this is the list, like nothing's been missed, or do you reckon they could update it further in future? Because there's some questionable decisions, isn't there? Like Tom Bombadil's not gone, and like models that don't have profiles that don't have models, such as Beachbone, he's not gone. Runish Wardrakes, they're not gone. The made up lean characters, they're not gone. I'm like,
Catapult
is
Troll.
this list exhaustive? The Catapult Troll's in the extended edition, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but also the Signal Tower. The Signal Tower.
Yeah, the Signal Tower. Yeah, the Signal Tower is not mentioned.
Now, to be fair, maybe there's going to be an article that's going to talk about profiles that are going to disappear, or be combined, or whatever. Because this was mostly, at least that seemed to be the intention, even though it wasn't necessarily, I don't think entirely true, that this is about the miniatures being removed. And so, since there's no miniature for the Wardrake, the Signal Tower, the Catapult Troll, and etc., they're not going to talk about them here. So it's possible that we're still going to lose those.
Potentially,
but yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of details in here. It's not like they're skimming over stuff. They list it out, and even with models not being removed, just getting renamed or repackaged, they also include that in this list. I'm just kind of like, is it exhaustive? I kind of want it to be, because I don't want to lose anything else, but I'm also like, please give us some stuff back and take this instead.
Yes. I'm going to hope that this is exhaustive, just for their sake, for Games Workshop's sake, if not ours. I hope that this is exhaustive, because they spoke very, like, the way that they spoke, it seemed like that this is the list, and if they were to come out with a second list, it just, or if they were to change some things last minute, it just wouldn't like look too good. And
but I mean, when have GW ever cared about looking good? To be fair,
yeah, to be fair, yeah, and I just, I think that with how detailed this list is, that my money would be on that this is basically the entire list. I think that if there was anything added or removed as additional things, it would be like they would go, "Oh yeah, we forgot to remove Gulavar."
Yeah, I didn't even think of him. You know, he wasn't even mentioned in the what's it called? The most recent Angmar supplement. Like,
Oh, Rise
does
of
he even
Ingmar.
get a scenario? Like, I
I
don't think he
don't
does. He's just
know.
completely bylined, and yet he's not in the removed models list.
My
Like, right,
book is still in
okay.
the plastic. I have not opened it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you if there was a scenario with Gulavar or not.
Aye.
But yeah, it's. I mean, what an article to have an impromptu recording for.
Aye.
There's
We
going to be
rambled
one.
on for about an hour and a half here.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to edit this because I want to just,
Get
I
out
want to
there.
post
Fair.
this and get
Yep.
some thoughts out there. But
Let's see if any discussion gets generated more so than the Doom posting in the Discord right now.
I know, yeah, the MESBG community does like their Doom posting. Thankfully, it's generally on the side of tasteful.
Yeah. It's not all doom and gloom, and some people can have a cheeky poke and even laugh at themselves and their own armies.
Yeah,
Like going,
exactly.
oh yeah, this staple that I always ran, Legacy, great.
Yeah. But hopefully, what this is signaling is that with GW, generally, since it's not 100%, generally shifting away from their own inventions and focusing on the movies and the books, we're going to see the game kind of evolve. And I'm thinking that with the removal of stuff in their range, it's going to really help Games Workshop as a company to focus their range. I think we're going to see the fact that an opening has been made that there's going to be some level of replacement. So, when the Hunt for Gollum movie comes out and when the Road Hero movie finishes, we're going to see them
Yeah.
adding units from those. And I think while we've lost stuff now, it's going to be an ebb and flow. I think we're going to see, the water has retracted from the shoreline and it's at low tide, and I think we're going to see a high tide soon enough.
Yeah, for sure. It's given me real hope seeing Plastic Hill and Plastic Warriors of Rohan that we're going to see some models get updated, as well as some new spins on stuff coming out as well. Because obviously the Wildmen are no longer Wildmen; they're the Hillmen, the Hillmen that you can use as Wildmen. So there might be some cooler stuff on the horizon that is just going to be boss. It's going to be really fun and bring back a lot more flavor. As long as not every hero they release has a fight before it, please.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that in this episode. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it here, and get this posted, and we'll jump into the chat and see what folks are talking about over this next week or so, because I think the new editions are on the corner. So
It's
we'll just
coming.
wait
It's
and
coming.
see. But thanks you everyone for tuning in to this Discord in the Ranks impromptu recording. It's gonna be interesting. Thank you.
It is. Take care.